Please welcome SAME National President Sharon Kroc, Fellow SAME.
Y'all ready for this?
Y'all ready for this? Round two. Welcome to day 2 of JETC. It's marvelous to see so many of you here this morning, especially after last night. And I'm always wanting to learn something new. And what I've learned just last night is that there are many of you that are cowboys and cowgirls in the society that I never realized. Anyway, last night was a fantastic opening reception at 4th Street Live. Getting out in those informal settings, excuse me, and making connections, and there's lots of screaming when the music is loud, excuse me. Informal settings and making connections with friends and business partners is often as important as the more formal ways we network. We've all heard it over the years. SAME is like one big family, and it keeps growing. My thanks to our titanium sponsors for sponsoring last night's reception. It was a grand time. Support is at the core of what we do as an engineering community. It is support beams that hold up buildings and structures from which we project power, train, and ensure readiness. It is support systems that help ensure the men and women of our uniformed services and industry firms are advancing in their skills and developing the knowledge and experience they need. It is support that military engineers provide downrange to force maneuverability, to install readiness, and to preparing the theater. It is support that industry firms provide to government partners to help ensure they deliver on their mission-critical programs and projects. And it is support that our society, and so many of you, provide to help develop the next generation of STEM professionals and leaders for our nation. And it is support that all of our sponsors and exhibitors give to SAME that enables us to host events like JETC, where we can all come together to ignite ideas and deliver the mission. Yesterday, we heard from a few of our titanium sponsors on the importance in innovation and creativity through JETC. Now let's hear from our other titanium sponsors on how JETC and SAME are crucial in fostering that collaboration that supports the entire joint engineering community and its mission. Please roll the video.
Through its diverse forums, interactive seminars, and many networking opportunities, JETC fosters a truly collaborative environment. It's where ideas are exchanged and innovation flourishes. By strengthening industry-government engagement and fostering partnerships, JETC enhances the entire architect, engineering, and construction community. Together, we drive progress and support critical infrastructure.
It's critical because we all know engineering solutions and some of the work that we do, both designing, constructing, and studying some of the tougher problems, give us a chance to innovate. JETC brings together the military community, the industry community, and it gives us an opportunity to really think through tough problems and solve them.
Collaboration at these events allows us to re-engage with our clients and colleagues, build networks, and share the latest ideas and industry best practices. At Stantec, we believe we are better together. With the support of events like JETC, we're able to collaborate across the industry to redefine what's possible for our clients and communities.
By bringing together a diverse group of experts from various sectors, JETC encourages the cross-pollination of ideas, which often leads to breakthrough innovations. Whether it's through networking, discussions, or collaborative project opportunities, JETC acts as a catalyst for building partnerships that last.
JETC introduced me to new technologies and perspectives that directly support my work on the job site. I'm proud that ECC sponsors this event and invests in it as a learning opportunity for young professionals.
JETC is all about top-notch, the latest information and knowledge share. It's timely, current, highly relevant. That's why this conference is so important to both industry and government alike. We have contract relationships today that literally started from a chance conversation at JETC. We're absolutely stronger together. For firms like DLR Group, JETC provides almost unlimited opportunity.
Thank you again to all the JETC Titanium sponsors. And for their support of SAME and their sponsorship of this general session. Before I make my closing remarks as SAME president, can you believe it's already been a year? I can't. And swear in your next society president, I want to share some highlights about the past year. Our SAME year, from a leadership perspective, is from May to May. But our awards and streamers and other recognition milestones are on a calendar year basis. So each JETC, we are honoring the impact and service of our members throughout the prior year. We'll get to recognize some more of those folks tomorrow night at the Society Ball. Hope you'll be there. 2024 was truly a banner year for SAME. 60 posts received the Streamer Award for their support of our strategic plan. A total of 57 of those posts earned the Streamer with distinction, making them distinguished posts. And we had 81 posts take home the membership Streamer, which means they actively increased their membership. Thank you all for sharing the value. The numbers across the society are impressive. 624 IGE events and activities, 336 resilience events and activities, 616 developed leaders and related activities, 387 veterans transition and support activities, and 757 STEM activities. That's tremendous. Those are thousands of hours of volunteer service and thousands of people who are positively impacted through our posts. During 2024, we had 44 members reach 50 years of membership, and another 5 companies reach 25 years of company membership. Did you know there's more than 130 companies that have been members of SAME over 25 years? And 14 companies that have been members over 50 years. That's right, awesome 50 years. I wasn't even born yet. The continued support of all our members and partners year in and year out is the secret to how SAME is able to raise the bar in delivering for our agency partners nationally and in all the local areas where our posts are part of the community. Let's watch a short video looking back on another year of success, thanks to those contributions from all of you and our 20,000 members around the world. Please roll the video. That just makes my heart happy to see that video. And hopefully some of you saw yourselves in that video. I remember it was actually a couple years ago that I was like, oh, I made the year in review video. So hopefully you've seen some of yourself in there. I have been honored to serve as SAME's 105th national president, and I've been lucky to work with an amazing national leadership team and national board members. I would like to now recognize and thank those members who are departing SAME's national leadership.
Danielle Barner, Josh Biggers, Lisa Brandon, Mario Borgos, Robert Burton, Sally Clark, Rad Delaney, Summer Gladden, Josh Graham, Pat Hogaboom, Alexander Masters, N.K. Mbaya, Frank Mondo, Dave Newkirk, Arpin Patel, Julia Pluff, Caroline Roberts, Lori Whitney, Eric Wilbur, Mike Zapata, Marilyn Zenko.
And after several years of leading the society in various national roles, our past president, Charlie Parham. Thank you all for your service and dedication to SAME. If you haven't noticed, I get a little excited when I talk to people about SAME. I hope all of you do too. There's always so much to share, but sometimes it's hard to summarize. Now that's a little bit easier with our newest strategic plan. It's so much easier to do. That was one of my 3 focus areas this past year as president, focusing on the strategic plan. We developed and successfully implemented our 2030 strategic plan and narrowed in on those 3 easy to remember and share interdependent goals: driving partnerships, delivering solutions, and developing people. Highlighting our communities of interest, our councils and committees, was another area. And this is an ongoing process that I encourage you to get involved with if you aren't already. I'm sure there's one that strikes your fancy. Each one is a subset of the greater SAME family, each with its unique distinguishing characteristics and benefits. For me, the camps program has always been one of my favorite things and very near and dear to my heart. We have 5 national camps, and as you learned about yesterday, we're growing even more, welcoming the younger generation into the AEC community every summer. Apparently, one of those other focus areas of mine has been group selfies. Can you believe I asked the service chiefs to do a selfie with me at Capitol Week, and they willingly obliged? I'm such a big fan. Thanks, Admiral Vanderlei, General Hartless, and General Graham, and so many of you that joined photos so that I could share them on social media for others to see how much value SAME can provide locally, regionally, and nationally. So I need to take at least one more national selfie from the stage. Bear with me, and I'll squeeze in a little bit. If you could, please. I gotta show this one to my mom, too. All right, oh, as many as I can get in there. Ooh. Wait, I gotta fix my hair. There, well, it's the lighting. Okay, good, excellent. You all heard me talk about support previously and how it's at the core of what we do as an engineering community. Support is also at the core of SAME. I've had an extraordinary year visiting posts all over the country, and I couldn't have done it without support. Support from my company, Schnabel Engineering, who never hesitated when I approached them about taking on a national leadership role, as well as my coworkers that supported me by taking on additional responsibilities to allow me the space and time to focus on SAME. Support from the volunteer national leadership team, Charlie, Mike, Ben, Albert, Patrice, Mario, and Tim. I appreciate all you have done for the society and for each other. Support from mentors. There are numerous ones that I can't name all in the audience here that have guided, encouraged, and certainly challenged me. Support from the SAME national staff, who are second to none. Hear, hear. Each and every one of them are dedicated to the society's missions and its volunteers, and it shows. Thank you for making all of us look good with your preparation, your organization, your knowledge and experience, and especially your patience, because we all are volunteers. and support from all of you. So many new people I met this year, and of course, lots of old friends that were all extremely encouraging and inspiring to me. And of course, support from my family, my husband, Brad, and my 3 amazing children. Alan, he's studying mechanical engineering at Villanova. They do have a pope, you heard. And he's a midshipman in the Naval ROTC program. Elise, who's graduating a few weeks from high school, going on to Gettysburg College in the fall to study biology. Both of which, I might add, attended an SAME STEM camp. Highly recommend for any of you that know some high school kids. And Emmett, finishing up 5th grade and heading to middle school this fall. As I complete my year as president, I'd like to leave you with a positive impact. Always have a good time. Always be learning. Meet somebody new, find an opportunity, and share it all with others. It will pay dividends, some immediately apparent, and others you won't realize until long into the future. Thank you all for this opportunity. It's now time to officially transition the leadership of SAME and swear in our 106th National President, Mike Hufstetler. Woohoo! All right. Gotta love the walk-up song. Yep. Mike, are you prepared to take the oath of office as President of the Society of American Military Engineers?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. In the presence of honored guests and the members here assembled, please raise your right hand and repeat after me the oath of office. I, Michael Hufstetler,
I, Michael Hufstetler,
do solemnly promise and pledge
do solemnly promise and pledge
that I will faithfully execute the duties of President of the Society of American Military Engineers
that I will faithfully execute the duties of President of the Society of American Military Engineers
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to commit myself to the Society's Code of Ethics,
to commit myself to the Society's Code of Ethics,
and assume full further the objectives of the Society. I'm so sorry.
I will further the objectives of the Society.
Good call. And assume full responsibility for this honorable organization.
And assume full responsibility for this honorable organization.
By the authority vested in me by our society, I now proclaim you duly installed as the 106th National President of the Society of American Military Engineers. Woohoo! Great job.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that was good.
How about another round of applause for our new president? Woohoo!
Sharon, thank you. I'm so honored to be up here as president of the Society. Your SAME journey is absolutely remarkable and a shining example of true leadership that started at the Philly Post, from the National Board to the Academy of Fellows, and just about every national position and office that one could hold. You've given so much to the Society, and we are grateful for your leadership, your energy, your ongoing commitment to share the value of SAME. That's a legacy you leave with all of us. In my first official act as president, I would like to present you with the Past President Medal.
Thank you.
Congratulations. While this honor recognizes the service you have given, we all know Sharon, so we all know that you will continue to serve for many, many years to come. Another round of applause for Sharon Kroc.
All right, so I said one last one, but I gotta get this one with Mike as we hand off. There we go,
yes.
One more. I can't wipe the smile off my face. All right, a little less.
Don't do that.
All right, excellent, congratulations.
Thank you. If you see me walking funny today, I rode the bull last night. It is such an incredible honor to be standing here as national president. I want to express my gratitude to my firm, DLR Group, for allowing me to serve in this capacity and for the many years of support that our company has provided to SAME. Second, I want to thank SAME's Executive Director, Major General Retired Mike Weir, and the entire National Office directors and staff. Thank you for the excellence that you drive every single day through all of us volunteer members. In a moment, I want to share my priorities for this year, but before I do, I want to acknowledge two SAME leaders without whose encouragement I would certainly not be here. Rear Admiral Retired Mark Hanley and Cindy Linscomb. Could you please stand? So I can remember multiple times off in some corner at an event like this, talking with one of them, and I'm listening, paying attention, but in my head I'm thinking, seriously, you think I'm right for that? How many drink tickets did you have? But thank you, Mark and Cindy. I'm so very grateful for both of you, for your steady support and friendship and your leadership with our society. First things first, I am not an engineer. A couple boos, maybe, I don't know. I'm an architect by training. All right. I figured I better get that one out of the way. I'm a father of 6, ages 38 to 18, 34 to 18, geez. 4 boys and 2 girls. 2 of my sons have served and are serving in the military. My high school sweetheart, Beth, is here, and we just celebrated 37 years of marriage this past March. My SAME journey has been about as non-traditional as my professional journey has been. For 28 years, from 1989 to 2017, I was an on-again, off-again SAME member, moving from post to post, different roles and responsibilities, companies, even in and out of the federal industry. I was content for most of those years to just receive what SAME had to offer. I thought volunteering and leadership of the post was for those people up there at the head of the room running the post meetings, the select few. Maybe some of you can relate to that. In 2017, something triggered me, and I'll tell you exactly what in a moment. But it got me off the fence. I decided to roll up my sleeves, start giving back, investing some spare time with my local posts where they said they needed some help. 8 years later, I went from Omaha Post volunteer to national president, not because I'm some bright guy, but because I listened and I acted. I listened to the needs and the genuine encouragement of leaders I greatly admired and respected, and then I acted. I realized that being a lifelong learner is just fabulous, but making a difference comes with raising your hand. Being a trusted steward in my day job had always been my priority, protecting and leading project teams and client relationships. It just had never occurred to me before then that I could do something similar over here in SAME. Trusted stewards, that is who we are. No matter what post we support or what role or committee we serve on, no matter what COI or national initiative that we choose to engage with, no matter whether our employer is government or industry, we are stewards of this relationship that has been entrusted to us by the thousands of volunteer members who have come before us. Last summer, after I stepped into president-elect, I reached out to Bob Keyser. Bob was the 2024 Walter O. Backus Gold Medal awardee and is one of the most accomplished SAME leaders that I know. I asked him if he would tolerate the nuisance. I wanted to pick his brain almost every month throughout the year. He said, okay. I told him I wanted to get back to some basics, back to our roots, to prioritize our why as an organization, wrap a theme around that North Star. I remember in our very first conversation, he said something that stuck with me. He said, beyond just industry-government engagement, what we need to get back to are industry-government relationships. That really resonated with me. The power of established professional relationships that endure over time. The kind of relationships that cemented a bond that brought this country through a world war and through numerous conflicts and world events ever since. I came across a poignant message the other day from a person on social media who had written about their prior military service. That while they didn't miss a lot about military life, what they did miss were the people, the relationships. They said, some bonds are stitched into you with threads you can't pull loose. Don't you love that? That's our 105-year threaded bond between industry and government that drives partnership, delivers solutions, and develops people. So this year, my theme for us is Build the Bond. Now more than ever, that's what we do best in SAME. SAME is a safe place, always has been, and it is enduring. My 3 priorities for this next year as we work to build the bond are, number 1, meet them at the point of need. Who is them? Them's interchangeable. It may be government, it may be industry, it could specifically mean our service members. No selfish aims as we identify where mutual points of needs are. Number 2, optimize our impact. Attention to speed of relevance, results-focused programs and initiatives, increase knowledge share and training. And number 3, fuel our profession. That's the talent pool. K-12 STEM to higher ed, from higher ed into government careers, from higher ed into industry, from government into industry. But we want to switch from regular fuel to high octane. And we have the programs in SAME to do that. As I wrap up, I mentioned earlier a trigger 8 years ago that started me on my volunteer path. It's 2017. I'm attending a Southeast Region Industry Day. The keynote speaker is Major General retired Ed Jackson, division commander at the time. Ed shared a phrase that seemed to unite everyone in the room, government and industry. He said it was something he believed strongly. He said, it carries us no matter the sacrifices and long hours that government colleagues endure, no matter the challenges that industry endures while working with the government when they have other client choices. Ed's simple phrase was, this is noble work. That was a moment of clarity for me. Ed's phrase connected the why of government and the why of industry. This is noble work is our shared why. It's a higher calling that underlies SAME's purpose to preserve this enduring relationship. And it inspires us to seek out not only what we can do, but what we must do, a duty. So I hope you'll join me as we work together to build the bond. Thank you. We're thrilled to have 4 executive military leaders here with us representing their services. As you know, with the current environment impacting travel, the fact that our 4 panelists are here with us is a testament to the importance they and their leadership place on what we're doing here, not just on this event, but on SAME's ability to make sure the program and opportunities here this week are directly supporting how our services are able to execute their missions and prepare their engineers for the critical challenges that they face. Would each of you please join me on stage as your names are called? Brigadier General Kirk Gibbs, Deputy Commanding General for Military and International Operations, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Rear Admiral Dean Vanderlei, Commander, Naval Facilities Engineering Command, and Chief of Civil Engineers. Brigadier General Brian Hartless, Director of Civil Engineers, Deputy Chief of Staff Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection, U.S. Air Force. Rear Admiral Amy Grable, Assistant Commandant for Engineering and Logistics, and Chief Engineer, U.S. Coast Guard. We are so grateful that you all are here. Well, I mean, we know this is the best show in town this week, even better than Derby weekend. But it's the getting into town that's been a challenge for a lot of our government partners. So each of you will have a few minutes to make some opening remarks. Then we'll move into the Q&A. So let's just get right into it, because this is why everybody's here this morning. So General Gibbs, if you could, you're first up, if you could get us kicked off.
All right, 8 minutes. That's what the clock says. I thought it was 5, so that's a bonus to lead off. First of all, I'm absolutely honored to be here and represent the Chief of Engineers, Lieutenant General Butch Graham. Maybe I can get a selfie like he did.
Let's do it.
But you know, there's a lot going on in the federal government right now. And I think we all know that, and in the military side as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I don't know if retired General Semonite is in the room today, but we talked about you this morning, sir, if you are. We talked about, I think this is my first one of these panels on behalf of the Chief. And I hope Admiral Vanderlei doesn't get up and walk the stage but at least he's following me, and I don't have to worry about being repetitive. The rest of you all do. But I don't have to follow General Semonite, and I'm happy about that. So you were mentioned this morning. First, I want to thank SAME for their invitation, continued partnership, and all that they do with all of us in partnership. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, what you mentioned, Mike, just a little bit ago, relationships at the very end. But I really want to talk to you all briefly, specifically about the Army first, and then I'll step it down to the Corps of Engineers. The Army is undertaking the most significant transformation and modernization effort in more than 40 years. You've probably seen SecDef's guidance, followed by the Secretary of the Army and Chief of Staff of the Army's Army Transformation Initiative that followed within an hour. So this was clearly something General George has been working for a while. And it's titled Army Transformation Initiative. It was a letter to the force. The intent is to build, and I'm looking at notes because I want to get this right when I'm quoting the Chief of Staff of the Army, but it's to build a leaner, more lethal force that prioritizes defending the homeland and deterring China in the Indo-Pacific. The memorandum goes further to list several efforts and initiatives. I'm only going to highlight 3 here, but you know, make no mistake about it, each and every one of those touches the Corps of Engineers, and many of you up here actually, in some way, shape, or form. The 3 I'm going to highlight here, modernizing the organic industrial base. I know that's something you're probably all very interested in. This has been ongoing, challenging mission, big projects at our Army supply depots, ammunition depots across the nation, and something, quite frankly, that the Corps of Engineers is struggling with because of the rising costs, the designs that come in and the costs that many of those things are unaffordable, and I think that you're going to hear that as a theme during this panel, and how we've got to control costs. We're looking for help on that, and USACE can build the structures, but what we're finding is a lack of experience across our Army and the federal government on outfitting those internally. It's just a challenge that we're working through. And with this being part of the transformation with the highest level of attention, we've got to figure it out. Second, increasing Army forward presence in the Indo-Pacific. You know, I just left commanding the Pacific Ocean Division out there for 4 years. It's a priority theater for the Corps. Pacific Ocean Division is a priority division. We've got to make sure that they're resourced and that we're prepared to help in any way possible with infrastructure across the Pacific. Now, I know Admiral Vanderlei, I worked with him closely out there for a year, and then Admiral Jeff Killian, the last 2 years that I was there. They've got a huge mission on Guam. The Corps of Engineers operating in Japan, Korea, Kwajalein Atoll. But that's something that we're really going to focus on in the Corps of Engineers, is making sure that we can support that effort. That's huge. And then finally, I think we'll talk a lot about this over the next hour, reforming acquisition processes, tools, and authorities. That's huge. And that's in the acquisition world, the PEOs. But when it comes to construction, there's been a lot of focus on that from the senior Army leadership. So with a leaner civilian and military force and aggressive timelines, the Army and USACE cannot continue to operate as it has in the past. So how are we viewing this? It's an opportunity. Yeah, we've lost a lot of people. That's challenging. We're working through that. We've lost experience, capabilities, but this is an opportunity. We've got to change. We've got to streamline how we do business, and we've got to do things better than we have in the past. So how are we going to do that? I would tell you, not just since the administration changed and our leadership gets confirmed. I've been working on, and I know Admiral Vanderlay's been working on this as well, and we all have, over the past 8 months, been focused on how do we get faster and how do we get cheaper. Now, I hate to use the word cheaper, but that's the easiest thing to, how do we do things within budget at reduced cost and compete with what they're doing outside the wire of our installations? We've got to figure that out. But I've been studying that. We've been putting initiatives in place to get after that. It appears that we have full support to overcome statutory, regulatory, and policy barriers that are impacting timely and cost-effective delivery of facilities. And I'm not going to get into it here because 8 minutes is winding down very rapidly. But we just had a study completed on MILCON costs, and it was very eye-opening. And although there's internal cultural aspects in USACE that can drive us to be more expensive, there's an awful lot of external barriers that we feel like we've got support, people are listening. How can they help? How can Congress help? How can the administration help? We're excited about that. So everything's on the table, everything. As we strive to meet General Graham's intent, which is safely delivering quality projects on time and within budget. I know we're going to discuss a lot of tools, acquisition methods here, so I won't get into any of that right now. But my final point, USACE has not forgotten about partnerships, and Mike, you highlighted relationships. The noble work, I love that we do. We cannot deliver projects without relationships with you all and our stakeholders that we're building things for. And I've told one particular story so many times over the past 10 years, and I won't name the project, but it had come to a screeching halt because the relationships with the contractor, the stakeholder, there was no communication, didn't like each other. It was a 2-month dedicated effort to get to know each other, to start communicating, talking. That project, when I was in Los Angeles, took off, and we did it within budget and on time. And it was the relationships that made that happen. Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to this time together. Thanks.
Thank you, General Gibbs. Admiral Vanderlei.
All right, well, thank you, Mike. And I got to finish that Todd Semonite story that Kirk started because you'll all laugh about this. So the very first time I ever did this, I was a brand new 1-star. My boss, Admiral John Cork, was out of town for Capitol Week. So he says, hey, you got to cover for me, Dean. Low risk, no problem. So I get up there. And of course, who am I following but Todd Semonite? So I'm up there, ready to do my little cheesy prepared statement. And he's up there like running around the stage. He's got the audience, cheering and standing up. And I was thinking, holy crap, I got to follow that.
And then he mic dropped. And
yeah. He gets, okay, over to you. But so anyway, hopefully I've got better over the years. But, Todd, you're our inspiration to try to be entertaining up here. And the reason we have 8 minutes, I think, is when our staffs were talking, they tried to give us 5, and they said, hey, Vanderlei's going to need 8. So thank me for that. Y'all got 8. And what I wanted to do here, one of the things, and you've heard me say this many times, that I really value about SCME is the opportunity for industry-government engagement. I think that's huge, and this is the best forum we have to do that. And a big part of that is understanding where the opportunity is. And when I think about opportunity, I think about the intersection of environment and capability. And so what I want to do here today is give you a sense of what the environment's at. You know what your capability is. And when we think about the intersection of those two things is where I think we see the opportunity to do that noble work. So I'm going to talk about 4 quick things about the environment, and we'll probably explore more in the Q&A. The first one I want to talk about is just the work that's here and the work that we're doing and the work that's not slowing down in a couple key areas. One of them is our shipyards. You've all heard about SIOP, probably Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program, a massive Navy investment in our 4 public shipyards, multi-decade, many multi-billion-dollar investment. That's not slowing down. The public shipyards for the Navy are some of our most critical infrastructure. That's where we do all the maintenance on our nuclear vessels, aircraft carriers, and submarines, which for the Navy are some of our really critical platforms. That's not slowing down. Building new dry docks. We got 3 under construction right now. There's another one coming in Bremerton that'll be the biggest project the Navy has ever executed anywhere, ever. And all of the other work to revitalize our shipyards, not only the condition, but the configuration. $6 billion in construction ongoing with a lot more to come. So that's going to be out there, and I don't see that slowing down. Another one, and Kirk alluded to it, is the work out in the Pacific. Guam has a lot of work already ongoing and a lot more coming as all the services look at moving more capability out to Guam. And then even work in some of those outlying islands that were super important in World War II, like Wake Island and Yap and Palau and Tinian. Those are all important again, and there's work coming in all of those. Those of you who had the opportunity to listen to Admiral Killian yesterday at our mega session got a little bit of a picture as to what's coming out there. That's not slowing down. And the third interesting area that's a little bit of a wild card has to do with maintenance of existing shore infrastructure. So a lot of times that we call that FSRM, sustainment and restoration. It's 1-year O&M money. In the 25 NDAA, there's a provision in there that talked about increasing to a investment of 4% of PRV per year. So for the Navy, if we were to actually do that, that would be a $20 billion increase in that type of investment. For the Marine Corps, it'd be $8 billion, so huge numbers. Now the authorizers actually have to authorize that money, so that's, there's a little bit of a wild card. But definitely a sense of Congress that they want to see the services invest more in the maintenance and sustainment of our existing infrastructure. So I think there's a lot of potential there. So that's the work that we're doing. The second is, I'll start off by having all of the Civil Engineer Corps, active duty officers, and NAVFAC civilians that are in the audience, please stand up. Don't be shy. So if you look around, so thank you all. So if you look around, you see a lot of good people, but not nearly as many as you may have seen in prior years. And I think that's a little bit of a metaphor for what we're experiencing, across the federal government. We still have a lot of really good people, but we don't have as many of them. In the foreseeable future, we're not going to have as many of them. And that's going to drive us to do things differently. So I talked about all the work that's coming, and that's not slowing down, but we got less people to do it. So status quo is a loser. You have to do it differently. We have to do it differently. Kirk alluded to it. So whether that's mirroring the way things are more done in the private sector, where maybe they have less of a staff to do the work, we partner with industry differently. Things got to change, and you're going to see that. Give us some time. We got to figure it out, but you're going to see some change there. The third one I want to talk about is budget uncertainty. So normally what I'd be doing here is I'd be talking about all the projects that are in the 26 budget, and I'm not doing that today. And you know why? Because we don't have a budget. And there's still a certain amount of churn as to what's going to be in the budget. And not necessarily a bad thing, but there's going to be a lot of agility required from both NAVFAC, our partner services, as well as you, as we respond to what comes into the budget and we start to see the administration priorities come out in that budget. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I saved it to the last because I think it's the most important, is acquisition reform, which is really all about affordability. Kirk said it, make it cheap. That is the thing I get pressured the most on. That's the thing I spend most of my time on. There's a huge demand signal, from Congress, from everybody in the Pentagon, that's hitting all of us on how can you deliver construction cheaper. And we've explained, Kirk talked about the study, so I can explain all day all the reasons why federal construction costs a lot of money. And that goes so far, and it's important that we explain that. But they don't really care about that. They want to know, what are you going to do about it? They want action, not explanations. And so a few areas we're looking at and we're working hard at, I will talk about. One of them has to do with the contract vehicles we use, acquisition processes. So when I talk about that, we'll talk about more probably in the questions, it's collaborative acquisition techniques, things like early contractor involvement, integrated design and construction, different ways of leveraging design build to budget, non-prescriptive design build. All of those are different ways to drive better collaboration, to allow industry to bring innovative ideas to us. We've often not set up our acquisition tools in a way to really empower you to help us. So that's a big one. Another one is different construction techniques. One that I'm really excited about is what I call industrialized construction, off-site construction, modular construction, those kind of approaches. Through an OTA, we were able to bring some non-traditional partners. And for our Child Development Center program that includes about 12 or 13 projects, we're looking to leverage that. We are going to leverage that. I also think when you see big barracks programs, again, you're going to see that kind of approach from us. It's another way. We think there's about a 30% savings potential if we really leverage the potential of that. And then I will talk about some wild cards. And we'll probably talk more about this. There's a FAR rewrite that's going on. We don't know what that's going to look like, but it's a wild card, and it potentially is going to drive opportunities. Another one is the UFCs. So there's at least a perception that the Unified Facility Criteria, UFCs, drive a lot of requirements that drive costs, and that's not completely wrong. But how can we change the UFCs? And there's some folks out there that would like to see dramatic change. So those are the big things about the environment. I got 9 seconds left, so I'm going to use it to say this is my last time up here in uniform, so thanks so much for the opportunity. And I want to, if Jeff Killian could stand up, Admiral Jeff Killian, somewhere, hopefully he's here. He's gone? Okay, he's super busy. Anyway, those of you hopefully got to meet him. The next time you see an AFAC leader up here in uniform, it'll be Admiral Jeff Killian. And fantastic officer, and I think you guys will love him. And many of you already know him. He's been leading out in the Pacific for 3 years now and doing some really good work. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Admiral Vanderlei. General Hartless.
Thanks, Mike. Well, thank you to the Society for putting on just another incredible world-class joint engineer training event and allowing me to be a part of it, represent the nearly 50,000 Air Force civil engineers that are out there supporting our Air Force and Space Force bases. Sharon, thank you for your steadfast leadership and congratulations on a job well done. Thanks so much for all your passion for the Society. And Mike, congratulations as you step into the role. Look forward to your leadership in the years ahead as you help us build the bonds together. And thank all of you for being here, for your time and attention. Thanks. Airmen engineers have a long history of collaborating with not just our sister services and our other federal agencies, but with you and industry. And we just simply can't do what we do without you. So thanks for being here. I hope you can appreciate, as Admiral Vanderlei said, and General Gibbs as well, just the fluidity of things right now. And that there might be a little lack of specification, especially as we're looking into the out years. But we're just in the beginning weeks of executing our 25 full year continuing resolution, and then realigning the budget, which should be submitted here in a couple of weeks for 26 to the administration's priorities and the Secretary of Defense's priorities. And we're months away from 27 POM as well. So a lot going on there. Can't get into as many of the specifics there, but a lot of exciting work ahead. What I can talk about is something that I know is foundational to all of that, and that's teamwork and partnership, and then infrastructure risk. So if I could bring up the first slide, I want to show just a couple of pictures to illustrate a couple of examples of how we're training together and working together and kind of building those bonds together. One of the great examples that I can provide is the joint engineer partnership that's happening out in the Pacific Ocean with the ongoing restoration of a World War II era airfield, Tinian North in the Marianas Islands. And so that picture in the upper left is a partnership between the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Tinian Municipal Council, getting ready to cut the ribbon after we had just completed some paving operations. The first time we've paved on that island since the Seabees left in World War II and constructed the airfield there. and we paved a road going from the international airport up to the North Airfield to facilitate the work that's going to take place there over the course of the next year. So great example of partnership. Also partnering with industry. That picture there in the middle, that's some ongoing work at the international airport there at Tinian to create that as a divert airfield, or a place we could conduct exercises or humanitarian type operations. So there's about 5 Milcon projects going on there where we're working with industry. A little over 400 million. What's being done there is 2 420,000 gallon fuel storage tanks. So really appreciate the partnership that we have with industry, both at home and abroad. As Admiral Vandelay alluded to, a lot of work going on in the Pacific. From training, joint training, that's where our bread and butter. That's what we do best. That picture there in the upper right, that's a picture of Air Force engineers and Navy engineers doing a joint airfield damage repair exercise at an undisclosed location in the Central Command area of responsibility. Just a great example of partnering together out on an airfield in a high stress, high stakes type environment. Also training with our allies and partners. The partnerships that we're building there, kind of the lower left-hand corner. Back in February, we did a 4-day airfield recovery exercise with Spanish and Portuguese engineers as well as Navy engineers, demonstrating capabilities, learning from each other, teaming and partnering to kind of get to know and understand each other's capabilities for what could be, a high stress type situation. And then lastly, that picture there in the lower right, that's from our readiness challenge exercise. That's our Air Force, sort of our premier readiness kind of wartime exercise. Training event that we do every other year. That picture is from last April. We're already getting ready for the event next April. And in last April's competition, again, a graded event, we had both Marine Corps and Army engineers participating. Those are combat engineers from the 20th Engineer Brigade installing a mobile aircraft arresting system. So a piece of equipment that we might find on an airfield in a remote location to be used to catch an aircraft equipped with a tailhook. And we've got Army engineers assisting, actually installing that piece of equipment. So just a couple of examples about how we're trying to build the bonds in the service with our allies and partners, and doing it, in a way that I think is really honorable and meaningful and productive to our national security. The other issue that I really wanted to also highlight is from the stage today is infrastructure risk, kind of in the context of the budget pressure that we will certainly be experiencing here. Rebuilding our Air Force, as has been alluded to, is not cheap. It's not inexpensive. So the KC-46, the F-35, the B-21, the Sentinel intercontinental ballistic missile, these are all expensive propositions, all expensive weapon systems. And then the recently announced uncrewed fighter aircraft, the collaborative combat aircraft, as well as the next generation or the 6th generation fighter aircraft, the F-47. So these are all important to our national defense, but at the same time as we undertake these programs, there's also a lot of other areas that we want to kind of highlight and allude to that are also important, and that's the challenges and the risks that we're taking at our bases with our infrastructure. To that end, late last year, we released the Installation Infrastructure Action Plan, or I2AP. You can go to whatever web browser you use and type that in, and you can pull that document up and see how it's going to kind of be our roadmap for the next 15 years and how we're going to get after this challenge here. On this slide, it really tells a story about, over half of our Air Force is in a state of degraded, infrastructure conditions, from our airfields to our most mission critical type facilities, all the way down to our utilities. The bar on the left is of each set of pieces of infrastructure there is the current condition as it is today, and then the bar directly to the right of it with arrows pointing down show the projections that our modeling will forecast based on the level of investment that we're currently making. So it just shows that the risk is only going to increase over the next few years, and it's something that we really need to get after. To kind of get after that, we're prioritizing in our budget in 25 a huge program to get after new mission, the Sentinel, the B-21, which I mentioned, about 20% to combatant commands, Big investment in the Pacific. Also central to our investment approach is quality of life, new dorms at Langley, a child development center at Mountain Home Air Force Base, and a new dorm, an Air Force dorm, at the Medical Education and Training Campus at Joint Base San Antonio, located at Fort Sam Houston. That's intended to be our first OTA pilot project. So we're excited about that and know that we have many more projects to come after that dorm. If I could go to the next slide, please. Just a couple of final talking points to kind of get out there, and maybe we can explore in the Q&A period. You can see we're really, in terms of our, the maintenance and repair spending, and Admiral Vanderlei alluded to that. You can kind of see what our modeling shows, what our forecasting models show is if we can kind of be if we can invest at roughly the 2% to 2.3%. Overall of our overall value of our physical plant. That's going to keep our good infrastructure good. That's sweet spot investing. And you can see we're falling short of that each of the last many years, that gap underneath the 2.0% investment level. The ramp that Admiral Vanderlei alluded to that was in the 25 NDAA starting in fiscal year 27 at 1.75 and going all the way up by fiscal year 30 to 4%. You can see at $5 billion where we are now, that would be just a huge number and one that's going to be really challenging to execute. And then finally, if I could go to the next slide, to kind of get after that, one of the other challenges that we face is the excess infrastructure. This is something that our chief has been talking about a lot. Since the end of the Cold War, we've got 60% fewer fighter squadrons, 40% fewer people, but we're still operating roughly the same size physical plant. So we got a lot of excess infrastructure. Here it is broken out by major command. In orange has got our vertical type facilities, and then in blue is our excess ramp space. And so it ranges anywhere from 10 to 20% excess in vertical, and then roughly anywhere from 50 to 80% in our ramp capacity. So a lot of excess infrastructure that we're maintaining and taking care of. To kind of get after that, we've ramped up our demo accounts, and from what used to be say 30 million, now it's more like 130 million. So we're putting a lot more money out there to try and get rid of the excess degraded infrastructure, as well as a policy where for anything new we build, we tear down something of equal square footage. So those are two ways we're kind of getting at it. I really appreciate the opportunity to share these things with you here this morning. Thanks for being here. Look forward to the opportunity to collaborate and partner with you on some of these challenges that we face in the years ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, General Hartless. Thank you. Admiral Grable.
Thank you. First of all, I'm so happy to be here. I wasn't sure if the Coast Guard was going to make it to JETC this year, but we did, and actually I'd like to copy what Admiral Vanderlei did and have all the Coast Guard civil engineering team stand up, because I think this might be present and past. Thank you. Proportionately, this might be the largest showing we've ever had at a SAME event. So I'm really proud of this team, and I'm really proud that we were able to be here. Especially at a time where our workforce is facing a lot of chaos and uncertainty, this SAME creates an environment where we gain so much value, but we also feel incredibly valued and supported. So I just want to express my deep appreciation to all of SAME, especially Sharon, congratulations, and Mike, congratulations to you as well. But this is exactly where we need to be right now, and we are gaining so much from this event. So part of the difficulty of getting here was that it's called a conference. However, I was able to justify that despite it being a conference, the industry engagement aspect was deemed mission critical by our secretary. And I was able to get that, and so everyone was able to come and fully participate in the conference, thanks to some support from SAME to help us with that. But a lot is happening in the Coast Guard, and I want to share a little bit about our environment, our operating environment today. Our missions have not changed, but our operational focus has shifted in response to the President's executive orders and guidance from our DHS Secretary. Our highest priority remains controlling, securing, and defending the U.S. border and maritime approaches, starting with the southern border, where the President has declared a national emergency. And with our partners at DHS, DoD, and DOJ, we are ensuring 100% operational control of the border. Since January 20th, the Coast Guard has interdicted nearly 15% more illegal aliens at sea than in the same period last year, and more cocaine in that time period than all of 2024. We've also increased our targeting of cartels and criminal networks to interdict, seize, and disrupt illegal fentanyl production and trafficking. In addition, we continue to have equities both in the Indo-Pacific and Arctic regions, where our primary roles are presence, influence, and partnerships, and we'll continue to do that. But even with the growing demand for our service, today our Coast Guard is less ready than we have been any time since World War II. We're working to recover from a significant critical shortage of our enlisted workforce. Our cutters, boats, IT, aircraft, and shore stations are failing because of a long-term neglect of maintenance due to chronic funding shortfalls. Our efforts to replace aging assets are underfunded and not keeping pace with our need. And we're increasingly forced to cannibalize good parts off of one ship to replace bad parts on another, which is not only inefficient, but it burdens the crew and erodes our long-term readiness. And despite the heroic efforts of our people, we're in a downward readiness spiral. So because of that, the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security have set as one of their highest priorities the renewal of the Coast Guard to become a stronger, more ready, and more capable military service. And that is good for us because that means investment. And yes, they are including shore infrastructure as part of that critical investment. With the promise of budget reconciliation, we anticipate a large capital investment in our service. And we see this as the only opportunity to renew our service, and we have to seize that opportunity. We're calling it Force Design 28. And you'll see a more formal announcement from our secretary next week, middle of the week, announcing Force Design 28, what it is. But the basic tenets of it are creating a more efficient organization, pushing decisions to the lowest level, making sure that speed of execution is the top priority, and valuing innovation, even if it means giving up a little bit of control, not being as prescriptive. And finally, it will include robust industry engagement and partnerships. So as everyone knows in this crowd, shore infrastructure underpins everything we do. We like to say that every Coast Guard mission begins and ends at a shore facility. And with Force Design 28 and the expected investments, at least 20% of that will be dedicated to shore infrastructure, to build new facilities, new home ports, recapitalize existing facilities, and aggressively go after our $3 billion maintenance backlog. There's no way that we'll be able to be successful in executing that without our industry partners. So on April 7th, we were able to pull off an industry day on less than 2 weeks' notice. I was directed by our civilian political leadership to host an industry day as part of our Force Design 28 planning. And I want to thank the president of our DC post, Mr. Whitney Stoll, because he was able to pull at least 10 industry representatives, many of them from our NMAC contract, to come to Coast Guard headquarters to engage with the planning team. And it was a really robust 3-hour session where we were able to collaborate and come up with what needs to happen so that we can move faster in the future. We're going to do more of that in the future. We held a session yesterday. Many of you may have attended. It was called Path to Force Design 28. And we had a panel of my team there yesterday. We have 2 additional events coming up at the Capitol Turnaround event sponsored by, I think it's both National SAME and the DC Post in July. And we're also going to do regional industry hosted events, partnering with SAME at all of the locations where we intend to invest. That list is not finalized yet, but we know that those areas will likely include Newport, Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island, New London, Connecticut, Baltimore, Maryland, Cape May, New Jersey, Charleston, South Carolina, and Seattle, Washington. I'm so thankful for SAME for their willingness to lean forward and support us and partner with us to make sure that we're able to do that and lean forward and move fast. I'm looking forward to additional engagement with all of you. I'll be here through Friday. And thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Grable. Appreciate everybody's opening remarks. We're going to now go into some Q&A. I'm going to jump around a little bit, so we're not going to kind of go in the same order, if that's okay. I'd like to start with Admiral Vanderlei. This first question is, each of you have touched on in your opening comments, Department of Defense is undergoing a significant shakeup in priorities and funding and how these monies are spent. And I know you touched on a little bit of this in your comments and even the FAR 2.0 question, but if you can maybe do a little bit deeper dive, how do these changes affect how NAVFAC delivers on your important missions for the warfighter, the families, and the nation?
Yeah, great question, Mike. So as you alluded to, we're in a time of significant change, unprecedented in my career, I think. I liken it to when the conquistadors crossed the ocean, they burned their ships, and it was fight or die, and that may be a little extreme, but there's some element of change or fail for our approach right now. And I alluded to, my mantra is, status quo is a loser. There's no way we can do what we need to do. And you mentioned not only are we doing work with less people, but we're also facing an environment where, with changing priorities, changing funding streams, a number of things. And I touched on a number of things that I'm focused on to drive that change and accommodate it. How we do business, where we do business, some of the processes we use, some of the contract tools we use. But all of that, underlying all of that is agility. So what I'm driving for in every one of those changes is an organization in partnership with industry, with contract vehicles, that is agile to quickly respond to change, so that as we see these new national priorities materialize, how can we be the most agile to deliver in a relevant timeline? A typical MILCON timeline of 7 years, 9 years, that's not going to cut it. It's irrelevant. So what we're doing, if I had to summarize, is driving towards agility in partnership with you, where we're laying out the environment, trying to lay out the problem statement, and then collaborating with you on where is that intersection between your capability, your understanding of how to get things done, quickly and affordably, driving towards being able to respond to, the mission in the environment we're in.
Great. Admiral Grable, any comments from your perspective, the Coast Guard, on that question?
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that. We're going to have to execute the additional funds that we're going to be getting on top of our annual budget, and that's going to create a challenge with the limited workforce that we have. So we're going to need to reach out to industry more than ever. We're going to need assistance with planning, designing, cost estimation, construction oversight, all of the above. So we're trying to figure out the best way to do that, the best way to expand our team, so that we can do all of this at once. It's our biggest challenge.
Okay. General Harless.
Well, I think, to add on to what the other panelists have said, as engineers, regardless of what the priority is, we do our job so others can do theirs. We don't create the requirements, we adjudicate them and certainly deliver them for the customers. We certainly help create the requirements when it comes to our infrastructure. Again, we do our job so others can do theirs. So, as the priorities change, that's not really anything new to us. We're used to shifting and adjusting from a, changing in the priorities standpoint. And I don't really see a lot of big changes. The foundational things to all the priorities are, the MILCON and FISRM, these things are foundational to whatever the priorities shift and change to. So I don't see a big difference from an Air Force perspective. We're going to continue to work hard and meet the needs of the priorities that are set before us.
Great. Thank you. General Gibbs, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, it would be repetitive to repeat what Admiral Vanderlei said, but as I look at the impacts of personnel cuts that we've had, within the Corps, we start thinking, okay, we're not going to be able to do everything. And But we're going to support administration priorities. We're going to support those. We're going to support MilCon, of course. We're required to do that statutorily. But then you start looking at the smaller projects. And so we sit back and we say, we're not going to be able to always do those FSRM type projects now. We're going to have conditions set, have the capacity, the resources to execute them. But then we look at our U.S. Army garrisons, and their DPWs and their staffs have been cut even more. So who's going to do them? Those are the challenges that we're working through right now. Hiring freeze in place, and it's going to be about prioritization. It's going to be about working with industry on the best way to do things, being agile. And it's going to be about making sure the conditions are set for the projects that we're going to execute. Do we have contingency? Have we done the testing so we know what's behind the walls on renovations? We've got to do all those things to know what we're getting into. We can't make commitments on schedules without that kind of information and without having the resources in place. General Graham and I are really focused on that right now. How do we do all of the things we've always done? We can't, but we're gonna have to figure out how to do much of it.
Great. General Gibbs, if I could stay with you for this next question, and General Hartless touched on this a little bit with the Tinian example, but what are the most prominent infrastructure challenges USACE faces today, and how is USACE collaborating with industry to tackle those issues?
Yeah, I think I've touched on that opening comments and what I just said. I would highlight, as the administration's changed, we had a list of priorities we were working on. Those have changed quite a bit just based on modernization efforts. So refocusing our efforts for maybe heavy quality of life. Those are still there, but we've got to figure out how to do them at less cost, because the readiness and lethality type support to projects that we're going to do has come up to another level. So that's a challenge, and I just talked about the capacity to do those smaller projects that in many ways are very much just as important to readiness, to lethality, to soldiers and their quality of life. So balancing all that is a challenge. And always our bottom line right now is delivering cost-effective solutions at the speed of relevance. And I think we've all highlighted that. So how's the industry helping? Sessions like this. I've had a couple of folks that have come into the headquarters the past couple of weeks, and I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and ask for good ideas. And I know that immediately after this, probably there's going to be folks that come up. I had lunch with a group yesterday. We were talking acquisition type of tools, OTAs, what they like, what necessarily doesn't work. But we've got to partner now more than ever with industry. Our districts know that. They're doing industry days, some better than others, but we've got to engage. We've got to build relationships, and we have to do that now for when the budget, when we get our priorities, when we get the funding that comes in, we've got to be able to take off.
Great, sir. Admiral Vanderlei, expand on that?
Yeah, I'll pile on with a couple of things, and I've hit on a lot of them already, and I try not to be redundant. And I'll talk about a couple of extremes. So one is, I talked about the small work, and Kirk talked about it quite a bit, about some of the smaller work that we do that's really vitally important. And that's where, as I look at doing work with less people, I got to leverage my engineering expertise on the projects that require exquisite engineering expertise. And some of the smaller O&M work, maintenance work, although very important, that requires potentially less of our bandwidth. Putting contract vehicles in place, I call them point and click contract vehicles, where if you're paving or roofing, having contract vehicles in place that don't require a significant amount of NAVFAC bandwidth to get those on contract and get you guys rolling. So that's where we need, we'll be collaborating with you on either putting those vehicles in place or better utilizing the ones we have. And then we have the super complex big projects like building new dry docks, where we also need to collaborate with you, where those big projects that are many billions of dollars extending 5, 6, 8 years have a risk profile completely different than what we've traditionally worked. So again, collaborating with industry to understand what we can do to better share risks to make those attractive to you, and so that we're not paying massive premiums and contingency. So things like economic price adjustment, which is the clause that we have that provides the most flexibility for us, and there's a lot of flexibility built into that clause, where for commodities, when we're in times of a lot of economic change, that we can help to share that risk for commodity price changes, where we can even index towards labor rates. So as you're seeing volatility in labor rates, are there ways through we can share that risk? So, you know, we need collaboration. I take the two extremes and everything in the middle, where we're facing challenges with the little projects and the really big projects and everything in between. And then I talk about different ways of doing things, new ways of doing things, just a little touch on what we need to do.
Okay, great. General Hartless, anything to expand on that?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I would just add, in addition to what I mentioned earlier about, you know, age, condition, excess, I mean, all these different types of, you know, challenges that we have. Another big one from a threat perspective is cybersecurity is a huge challenge. When I get asked what keeps me up at night, that's usually what I come back with, because, and it's the cybersecurity of our operational technology. That, to me, is one of our biggest areas and one of our biggest challenges. To that end, we just stood up an office in the Pentagon, a cyber resiliency office for control systems. So now we've got a dedicated team that's really focused on tackling that issue and helping to advocate for the resources to get into the program. But we know that's a huge area of risk for us. And so I guess in addition to those other things, it's the cybersecurity piece of especially our operational technology that worries me considerably.
Okay, great. Admiral?
Yeah, well, ditto to that, but additionally, one of our biggest challenges is making sure our shore infrastructure is ready when our new assets arrive. The Coast Guard's undergoing the largest surface fleet recapitalization since World War II. We're delivering 75 new assets in the next 2 decades, and all of those are going to need shore infrastructure to support them. But I'd say our biggest risk position with respect to infrastructure is our ability to have organic shipyard and ship depot support. So similar to what the Navy's doing with their SIOP, the Coast Guard also developed a SIOP, a shipyard optimization, industrial optimization plan, modeled after the Navy's plan, because currently our shipyard in Baltimore, Maryland cannot work on any of our new offshore patrol cutters or national security cutters. They're too big, we just don't have the capability. So we're planning to invest in that facility to bring it up to a modernized standard so that we can organically support, because the industrial base is just not available to maintain all of our assets as well as all the Navy's assets, and there's competition and a declining industrial base. So that's one of our big focused areas for infrastructure. And then also similar to what Admiral Vandelay said, we need those point and click vehicles big time, because our Coast Guard stations are kind of spattered like across the coastline in very rural, remote, very quaint seaside locations. And when we have to replace roofs or building envelopes or windows and doors, those sort of things, we're kind of doing them piecemeal. And we don't have the contracting officer capacity in the field to do that. So we really struggle. So we're trying to make things easier by offering larger construction warrant thresholds and ceilings to our field contracting officers, but also trying to put some of these sort of things in place, and definitely excited to learn more about what NAVHAC's doing.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're really leaning forward with creative opportunities or creativity in terms of engaging industry to help with those
Yes, we are.
conversations.
Yes, we are, as much as possible.
Great. I'm going to go back to General Hartless. Let's talk a little bit about OTAs, other transaction authorities. Again, a lot of buzz on this topic. A few of you touched on it in your opening comments. There appears to be a desire to figure out how to deliver traditional construction programs through OTAs. And, you know, some of the questions that come to mind, I think, for a lot of us in this room, what problems do you believe OTAs are really solving or can solve? How will the service ensure fairness in procurement process employing OTAs? And then how do you measure success, when you employ a OTA?
Well, thanks for the question, Mike. There's a lot to unpack there. I'll just kind of briefly offer a couple, and then I think all the panelists have a perspective on this. I think the proof is in the pudding. It's a pilot authority for a reason. Congress gave to us for construction. So for us in the Air Force, the first OTAs we're going to do are on a dorm, a large dorm, 2,000+ person dorm, and then a child development center. So we are, we're still in the beginning stages of trying to kind of understand, if it's going to give us what we want. So I think there's still an element of that. It's still a little early, but I think some of the obvious things that will help with when we look at a traditional MILCON. By the time we award the project, as Admiral Vanderlei said, we've been working on it for 5, 6, 7 years at that point. And did we get the requirement right in the very beginning or not? But if we can use OTAs to kind of flatten that timeline and work earlier through progressive design build or early contract involvement, as Admiral Vanderlei mentioned, I think there's a good chance that we can make sure that the end product is something that we're all very happy with and is going to meet the requirement. It's not just something that we designed at 35% 2 years before the budget was submitted, and here we are, 5 years later. I think if we have an opportunity to kind of, get left of the bang on the contract award, I think that'll be tremendous. But again, the proof is in the pudding.
Okay. Yeah. General Gibbs?
Yeah, Admiral Vanderlei would probably agree. How many times have you been asked in the past year, why can the University of Alabama build this dormitory for a quarter of the cost that we're building this barracks? And, I'm not going to get into, a lot of specifics on OTAs because I'm learning. I'm not an expert. I've been leaning on Denver Heath. How many people know Denver? He's our contracting chief in the Corps. To educate me on OTAs, what that means. But at the end of the day, first, let me, the Corps of Engineers, based on the type of work over the past couple of decades, and then there's a lot of turnover, and as you bring people on and hire them, we've kind of morphed into a design, bid, build type organization. We've gotten comfortable with that. And what we've recognized in the past couple of years is that there's a lot of different things being done out there. Some of them we're restricted from maybe doing, and OTAs and getting increased authorities will help greatly. But here's where my head's at. The days of the Corps, whether we contract out a design or we do it in-house and getting to 35% design, then going out to a contractor and backing them into a corner so they can't be innovative at all and maybe design build something to budget or think outside the box, inform, educate, and advise the Corps on how we can do these things. We've got to use every tool that's out there. Design build a budget is a tool that we could have been using. We just haven't, because we hadn't done it very much, and we hadn't done it in so many years that we didn't have the people that were ready to do it and comfortable doing it. But I've got about 9 pilots right now that I've identified, design, build a budget. And I'm going to get a scope. We're going to go to contractors. We're going to say, these are the requirements. We've got $50 million to do it, and work with them to see the facility that we get. That's where my head's at right now. So I'll stop there. I may have not answered any of those questions about OTAs. That's because I'm not that smart about it, but I'm learning. But that's where my head's at right now. Every tool that's out there, OTAs, I know, early contractor involvement, the innovation of industry is readily available, and we have the flexibilities to take advantage of that. That's where I want to go, however we get there.
Admiral?
Sure. So OTAs, for me, bottom line, it's an ability to leverage innovation to get after cost and schedule improvements. That's really what we're trying to do. And OTAs let you get after, and I'll talk about 3 main ways that I think OTAs help you get after it. One of them is it's a way to bring in non-traditional partners in some cases. Another, it helps you to sometimes leverage non-traditional acquisition approaches. And it helps you to get to non-traditional technical approaches at times. And I'll talk about the one time that we've really done it. We've done a couple of them. One of them that proved the most value, I talked about the child development centers, primarily in the Hampton Roads area, where we used an OTA. And what we found there that was super valuable, we had some folks engaged on that project that we would not normally see. So different partners. They came in with different construction approaches. A lot of them came in with, as I talked about, an industrialized construction approach. And then talk to us really. We always, I always thought that the way to get after industrialized was just put it out a spec that allows some flexibility. And what we really learned is, in order to do this, you really have to think about the acquisition process completely different. You got to start from the very beginning with that as your target and set up the whole acquisition approach that way. So could have we gotten there without an OTA? Maybe. I mean, we probably had the authority to do it, but I don't think we would have ever gotten there. The type of construct that you get with an OTA allows those 3 things to come together. And then how you measure success, I look at it in those 3 areas. Were we able to bring in non-traditional partners, find different acquisition approaches and different technical approaches to ultimately drive cost and schedule? And so that's where I felt like we achieved that on that one. But you got to pick the right project, right tool for the right project, and OTAs can help provide that. In your question about fairness, so the OTA is not the wild, wild west, right? You still have to follow the law. So there was still a competitive environment. It wasn't necessarily completely FAR-based, but a lot of the general, I would say the general spirit of the FAR, of fairness and competition, was still resident within the OTA. So it's not like it's some back room, smoke-filled room where you make deals. It does follow approaches that ensure fairness.
Great.
Well said.
Admiral Grable, maybe a few comments on that?
I know. Add a few comments. So I've not leveraged OTAs in the shore infrastructure domain. I have in the cyber domain in a previous assignment, and that's where it sort of lended itself to research and prototype type of things where it's intended for. And I did a little research yesterday after our session, and the Coast Guard language is a little different for our authority compared to DoD's. It's 14 U.S. Code 1158. It gives the Coast Guard authority to enter into transactions other than contracts and grants to procure cost-effective, advanced technology for mission-critical needs. So I suppose you could apply that for a variety of things, maybe tools or things to help us get where we need to be. But just to echo what Admiral Vandelay said, when I had used it in the past, our experience was that there's a lot of oversight that happens afterward, a lot of reporting that has to be done. And there was a GAO report that was done for all of DHS's times using OTA, and it showed that there was a lot of failures to do all that work afterward. So it's like, it lets you work faster in the short term, but in the long term, you have to be really careful. So it's definitely a trade-off.
In your CG4 role, you're covering surface aviation and shore logistics. Besides cyber, have you run into OTAs in either of those other logistics environments?
I have not.
Yeah.
Not that we haven't done it, I'm just not aware of it.
Right, okay. I'd like to go to you.
Probably something to take advantage of.
Okay, I'm going to tee up this, this might be our last question.
Okay.
Because we're kind of running out of time, but I'd like to start with you on this one, Admiral. So how are requirements to support new and perhaps non-traditional missions with uniformed service members and units, both domestically and internationally? How is that affecting your mission priorities? And I know the Coast Guard's a little different because you have statutory missions, and so a lot of that already is kind of interwoven. But for example, border-related air and marine responsibilities, and then Indo-PACOM, obviously, and I'll go to the other panelists with the same question.
And I'll reiterate what I said in my opening comments, that the Coast Guard, we're not changing our missions, so I wouldn't say it's non-traditional. However, we are repositioning assets to locations to best support the administration's priorities, which means we have a lot of cutters piling up at some of these ports where, for example, we don't have enough shore tie capacity, electrical shore tie capacity for everybody to plug in. We have fast response cutters running on generators, which means they have to leave 6 people on board to run their emergency diesel generator, they have a very small crew. So that's an area where, hey, we need to beef up our shore tie capacity at some of these locations. Same with out in the Indo-Pacific, where we're adding fast response cutters and other assets to those regions where we didn't have them before. So, we're mooring them double abreast, and we might need to have more robust infrastructure to support them.
Yeah. General Hartless, are you seeing any strains on uniform members in that space?
I'll keep it short. Yeah, no, we haven't seen any impact on Air Force civil engineers from a new mission perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Admiral Vanderlei?
Sure, and I've talked about a number of the ways. It's all about agility, right? As we're seeing new mission requirements come in, the ability to respond quickly. One I haven't talked about, and this is especially in the Pacific, where the demand signal from Indo-PACOM is working in remote areas quickly, expeditionary, where we're driving towards how do you leverage the Seabees, industry, and NAVFAC together to get after what's going to be required to position ourselves for potential conflict in the Pacific. And I'm super excited about what's happening there where, in World War II, we had 300,000 Seabees. Now we got a very, very small fraction of that. So the Seabees can't do everything they used to do, but they're still vitally important. And so how can we leverage industry for discrete work that helps to support them to help leverage the capability of the Seabees? So we're doing that. We got projects ongoing where industry really helps to complement the Seabees in a lot of ways legally, so I don't get in trouble. But that's an example of where we're changing the way we do business, looking at agile ways to do it in order to get after a mission requirement from the combatant commander that we would not be able to get after with traditional approaches.
Great. General Gibbs, you get the final word.
All right. We're doing a lot of real estate work primarily, but the border, we're working on the Sentinel program with the Air Force. My boss MDH has had a meeting with my boss 2 days ago and we've been talking about the Golden Dome. So those big programs, it's a constant balancing act of leadership I just got a hiring exemption for real estate folks to support Sentinel and the border. That's the only exemption I've gotten so far. Real estate. Because it's such a massive effort on those two missions. So yes, it does, it's impacting that's why I talked about the smaller projects. Priorities of the administration, of the Secretary of the Army. We've got to figure out first how to support those, and we need industry support to help with the other things a great deal. So you said final word. I appreciate y'all's time. And I appreciate Admiral Vanderlei, and I thank him for his service. And it's been great working with him for the last 4 years. And you were definitely the leader of the panel. And I'll be talking about you like you talk about General Semonite in a couple of years.
Yeah. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you. So we're going to adjourn this. We're out of time. Obviously, you all will be here walking the hall, walking the floor. So if you have questions, I'm sure you're open to people taking off into a corner and having a chat about things. But thank you once again. We really appreciate the time and the effort to be here and just your leadership in this space as we build the bond. So thank you for being here.